Welcome to another episode of last week's Comics Today. I have a small stack. Next week is going to be, I think, twice this big. But I also think most of this video is going to be focused on two books. We'll get there. But first we're going to start with Torpedo, 1972. And I was aware that there was a prior Torpedo, which I have not read. I was aware that Riso has done stuff in South America that I also have not read. I would like to. So I know that these things exist. I would like to read them, but I have not. This is my first experience with Torpedo, and I largely enjoyed it. The art is great. There is some weirdness as far as the writing goes. I'll show you this. So it starts here. It starts with a movie theater and a guy copping a feel. So it goes directly from this page turn here to her storming out and her saying, "What's so important you wanted to tell me?" And like, what? When was this established? There's nothing here says anything about some prior conversation where he wanted to talk to her. They were just in a movie theater. I didn't even know, honestly, that these two knew each other until this conversation here. And I'm just like, this is not great. It's okay. It's very strange, though. I'll show you something else, too. And I don't know if this is a formatting thing. Like, if the Torpedo 1972 was formatted differently originally in South America, and then sacrifices needed to be made here. But the last panel is actually the establishing shot for a new scene. And I'm like, what the hell is this? This is very weird. This is not where a book should end. So I don't know. Maybe this is me giving the benefit of the doubt. The original format was larger, and this was not the final panel of one of the issues, but it was actually the start of a new scene that then continued with, a higher page count. I don't know. I'm trying to be open-minded here, but I otherwise do not understand that decision. The art, as I said, is spectacular. I've been a fan of Riso's since I first read 100 Bullets. This is, I believe, the first time I'm reading him. No, that can't be right. When he's not written by Azzarello? I feel like Grim Knight was not. Grim Knight, maybe. But Torpedo, right? He's at this point in his life, kind of a creepy old man who kills birds in the park and then cooks them for dinner and a chick and like, oh yeah, he's throwing bird bones out his window, and like he's just this surly old man. He's just being a dick to everybody. And I don't know. I enjoyed it despite my complaints, like this last panel. I enjoyed it. I will be finishing the series because I want to know where it goes. It is crime. It starts with these two. So the guy's actually a reporter. He's investigating his story. It's related to this crime family. Torpedo is involved in that. So he's using Torpedo as a source. And things go awry from there. There is sort of an Azzarello-esque element to the writing. It's in that same vein, if you are familiar. It just doesn't have the tightness of an Azzarello script. But yeah, if you're a fan of Riso, I definitely recommend grabbing this. It is gorgeous. Writing could be better. That's all I'm saying. But yes, still enjoyed it. Golgotha Motor Mountain. Berg was looking forward to my comments on this. So I will say that I largely enjoyed it. There is some weirdness in here as well. I wasn't sure. I sort of got on this at the last moment, but I've been keeping an eye on it since I first saw it in previews. The art, kind of the early art that's shown is similar to this. It's a lot of colors. There's some weirdness. There's these dudes are actually wearing masks. Art is by Robbie Rodriguez, who I am a fan of. I think I first saw him on the FBP Vertigo way back when. This is even before Spider-Gwen. But Robbie is a major talent. And this is a gorgeous comic to behold. So there's a lot of writing in this, and one of the things that I sort of allude to, but I've never straight up said, I sometimes talk about how long it takes to read a book, and what I'm sort of getting at, what I'm prancing around, is sort of the dollars per minute. So you can pay, let's say, $15 and watch a movie for, let's say, an hour and a half to 2 hours, right? So it's pretty easy to calculate dollars per minute there. Comics are hugely variable. Less so in cover price, so this is $6, which is kind of a lot. But within that, let's say $4 to $10 range, there's a lot of page count within that. There's a lot of just density as far as words to read per page. I mean, some of the $6 Marvel stuff is still can be read in 10 minutes, and you're like, no, this is not worth $6. There's, as I said, a ton to read here. There's a lot happening. There's these black text boxes sort of give a history of the region. Give, yes, not just that, but there's some history as far as the space rock. Here's what happens. I'll talk about the story. So these two dudes, they're brothers in extremely rural Kentucky, cooking up some meth, and this thing comes falling out of the sky. And honestly, it should have caused more damage than it does, but it's this space rock that is being talked about in these black text boxes. And it immediately causes problems both for their cook and in other ways as well. I'm sure I will show that art in a minute. One brother has a plan. So he's doing an extra large cook, and the intention is to sell it, and then they're both going to move to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is their Shangri-La. It's so funny. To the rest of the Midwest, Ohio is a joke, but these two are looking forward to moving to Cincinnati, and that's hilarious to me. But anyway, these two guys use the rock. They use the modified drugs that they have cooked up, and they're trying to sell it to these guys here to get the money to move to Cincinnati. There's a little bit of more history as far as culturally racist groups that are happening in Kentucky. And so he tries it. One of the brothers tries the drugs and gets extremely high. This is where the art gets very trippy. And then some other people try it, and then some guts start to fall out, like this guy here. Just incredible. It's gross, but also incredible. And this guy's coughing up purple or spewing. It's hard to tell because he does have some there on his chin. So yeah, this thing is affecting them in some major ways pretty immediately. I don't know how long the series is supposed to be, but there's a reference. So here's the other weird thing. There's this, which I didn't fully understand. There's this backup story, and if you read the solicitation text, I didn't notice it's got a bump in its head. If you read the solicitation text, they talk about this and how it's a restoration. It's sort of a continuation and kind of conclusion to this other guy's work, and it's what I think is a strange inclusion in this, but okay, whatever. It's the rest of this is what I'm buying it for. The story of brothers and drugs and weird body mutations that happen afterward. I've already signed up for the next. I don't think I've subscribed. Just yesterday I signed up for, I think, issues 2 and 3, and I picked specific covers. Anyway, I'm gonna be reading this. I hope that it maintains this level of weirdness and the story density, and what I'm going to say is just enjoyment, because I did enjoy it. It's very strange, and I recommend giving it a shot, because who knows? It's a weird recommendation, but I enjoyed it, and I think other people will as well if they give it a shot. Pawnee Merrimac, number 3, I don't have much to say other than this is excellent. It's probably getting my pick of the week. It's excellent. You should read it. The art's gorgeous. The story is interesting. There is there's a comment in here about a weird sex cult. Honestly, 2 weird sex cults happening in this town. And yeah, that's a little weird. That's a little weird too. So this issue gets a little eyes wide shut as the investigation continues, and it's fantastic. I highly recommended. If you're interested, I'm sure once again there will be a collection afterward, but jump on this. It is possibly my favorite Kyle Starks. Possibly. It is incredibly well done. Rock Candy Mountain, I think, is the contender this is up against. I don't know. This is excellent, though. Highly recommended. I don't have anything else to say. It's gorgeous, well written, recommended. Get it. Here's the other one I'm going to spend some time discussing, Spectacular Spider-Man. And I want to start by talking about cartoons. Not the obvious ones that one of these creators may have been involved in, but going further back. So if you're thinking, I'm thinking, at a young age, I was watching Warner Brothers, Hanna-Barbera. I was watching cartoons made in the 60s, 70s, earlier. There would be color differences. So if you had like a rock face and one of those rocks was going to move later in the scene, it would be painted different than all the other ones. So everything would be gray, one of them would be slightly bluish, and you're like, oh, that one's going to move. And there was an obviousness to the story in that way. And then as I got older and I was more familiar with TV and movies and comics and just stories in general and various mediums, I picked up on additional elements like that discolored rock, where I'm like, oh, this is set up for eventual payoff. This is how stories are structured, usually, depending on where it's from, a 3-act structure, and certain things fall in each category. Set up and payoff, right? But also sort of focus. And if there's a scene where something strange happens, but, momentary focus on something specific, you're like, oh, I don't understand that at the moment, but it must be important, because otherwise they wouldn't have shown it. They wouldn't have wasted the time of filming this scene, setting it up, if it weren't going to be important later. What this has is several weird things that have no immediate connection to anything else that's happening here. So this is one of those. Here's a court scene. We've also got, there's a scene in Italy that happens a little bit later. There's a scene, what's the other one? Oh yes, there's this. Stage, musical, something. And where's the third one? This one here? Yes. And this is happening. And like, what the hell is any of this? And so I signed up for issue 2 yesterday, and I was on the website. I was reading the solicitation text for issue 2, and it mentions those weird interludes. I think it calls them mysterious interludes. And it hints that they are leading to something. I have no idea what that is. I'd forgotten about the third one, the first one shown here. But it's very strange, and like Weissman has been writing for decades. I would think he knows what he's doing. This kind of says otherwise. Like, I'm sure he's leading to something. I just don't think it works as well in this format. It's very strange. But what I want to praise is the dynamic between Peter and Miles here. I just finished playing a couple of weeks ago the Spider-Man 2 video game. It was amazing. Phrasing. I loved it. I loved specifically all of the Miles Peter stuff. I think it handled really well the switching between characters, them working together. There's a lot of that here. So if you're a fan of the game, I do recommend grabbing this. It's sort of it's not a continuation, but it's close enough to be related. You can sort of squint and it's okay. I will talk about the art. Humberto Ramos, he's drawing Spider-Man once again. Art looks fantastic. But I do think Peter's a little dense. He's talking about Jackal wearing a mask, and I'm like, that is clearly not a mask, dude. I don't know. You're supposed to be smart. I don't know why so frequently you are an idiot. But here's the other thing. So, Shaw shows up here, and I didn't know who she was, so I had to Google her. And then, much like that weirdly painted rock, I'm like, oh, she must be important. She's maybe the bad guy. If I, since I didn't know who she was, I'm like, maybe she's a bad guy. There's this guy as well, a friend of Miles, who has his own subplot going on. And then there are some high school teachers of Peter's, and I'm like, this is a lot of characters that don't immediately... I don't know. We're having a lot of characters thrown at us, and they don't do anything, so I'm sure it's set up for something. It's just, I don't know what that is, and it's not immediately obvious, and it will, I'm sure, come with time. There's so much webbing here, so much webbing. It's just weird in the moment, before that connective tissue is there, that there's all of this stuff introduced and none of it goes anywhere. It's very strange. Not enough to get me to not buy the next issue, it's just very strange. So, I am in fact getting the next issue. And that's all I can say. I recommend it? Question mark? Lastly, there is The Last Ronin. This is the sequel, not the... There's another Last Ronin. I just want to quickly mention that it is oversized, much like the first series was oversized. I honestly thought that the original series was even larger, more like the Black Label DC stuff, but it is not that large. So you can see here, size differences. In my head, it was as big as this, and so I got this, and I'm like, it seems a little small. It's obviously still larger than a standard comic, but I just thought it was... Anyway, I was wrong, as I frequently am. So there was a sort of sequel, kind of prequel to The Last Ronin called The Lost Years. I read a couple of issues of that, but it was mostly sad sack Mikey getting the shit kicked out of him, and I didn't want to read that. But within that, there was a subplot regarding the afterword, and they showed off 4 new turtles, and it was Casey and April, and I enjoyed that plot. And now we are focused solely on the future with those turtles. The weirdness here is actually trying to determine whether or not to read across or down on a given page, because it switches back and forth between those, and it's not great. It's not immediately obvious which direction to read, except here, which this is obviously a splash page. But there's a lot where it's like this, and I started reading down before realizing that I had to read across. It's just, it could be better laid out, is all I'm saying. It is good. There's some weirdness here as well. I don't have all of their names memorized yet, but it is good. It's interesting. I want to see where this goes. The weird thing happens here at the end where Odin is frozen. He hasn't started fighting yet. And then he turns gray. And thankfully, everyone else is confused as well. Spoilers for the last page. It says he's frozen solid. And like, what? So, I don't know. It's a little bit of politics. It's a bunch of ninjas and fighting and underdogs versus, you know, it's good stuff. It's very Ninja Turtles. It is for unfamiliar turtles to many people, but I enjoyed it and I want to see where it goes. So I'm in for it. So that is my very long-winded. I can see the timer on this, and like this is going to take a while. This is my very long-winded video for the week. Pine of Merrimac is my pick of the week. The rest of this is good as well. It's just Pine of Merrimac is head and shoulders above the rest. It's just great. And once again, I hope you give it a shot. It is fantastic. I highly enjoyed it. But that is everything that I got this week. As always, I get all of my books from a local comic shop. If you don't know where yours is, you can use this URL to find the one closest to you. Thanks for watching.